You are now listening to the Highlight Reel Builder for Authors, the Going North podcast. I'm your host, certified self-leadership trainer and author of the best-selling book, Stay the Course, Dom Brightman. And you're going to be getting some goodies today from the guest that's up next. How's it going, my friend? I'm so glad you're tuning into the Going North podcast because I have some great news, folks. The show now has some wonderful merchandise, so check out the wonderful link in the show notes to tpublic.com/stores/Dom-Brightman and click on that link to cop some wonderful gear based off of my wonderful tagline, advance others to advance yourself, because we got it in t-shirt form, hoodie form, and you can choose whichever color you like. So if you want to get it in pink, green, black, white, blue, yellow, red, we got you covered for the whole rainbow, especially for t-shirts and hoodies and everything else. So check it out all in the show notes and rock this gear. Heck, even take a picture of this wonderful gear, shoot it to yours truly, and I'll post it on my social media and tag you officially as well as one of the fans of the show, and you'll definitely get a shout out during one of the episodes in the future. So definitely click in the show notes, cop some merchandise, support the show, and let the world know that you have an abundance mentality of advancement. Now let's get on with the show, and I'll say it now since I might not say it in the ending credits. Advance others to advance yourself. And today on the Highlight Reel Builder for Authors, known as GMP, the Great, Glorious, and Glamorous, it's the Going North podcast, and we got one heck of a super special, awesome human for you today because it's a returning guest. My goodness, a returning guest, because my man is back and better than ever, because I think he's in a select club. Maybe one other author on this podcast has done it, maybe, but in recent history, this guy's the only one that I know of in my network to do it. 2 best-selling books in 6 months, back to back. My man is back and better than ever, because we got the one and only U.S. Air Force veteran, speaker, business advisor, and ROKU TV show host of life-altering events, Mr. FZ himself, Frank Zaccari. How you doing today, Frank?
I'm wonderful. Good to see you. Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Especially with all the plums, indeed. A plum, please, and pleasure. Yeah. Oh, always love that Les Brown line. But my goodness, congratulations once again. Like 2 books, 6 months, best-selling, back-to-back. Another one on the way, I hear.
Yeah, it's pretty. At first, it's shocking because I wrote 5 books before by myself with my brothers, and we didn't know what we were doing. We didn't know what publishing. We didn't know anything, right? So we just wrote them. We put them out there, and they got fairly good reviews, but nobody cared, right? Then I hit the radio show, Life Altering Events, and I started meeting people. Met you, met Kat Cannabis, met Dennis, and everything changed. We got this amazing group of people, and everybody's so supportive, and was able to have some of them on my show, and the feedback was very, very positive. And then I'm driving to Arizona because my daughters and my grandchildren live in Arizona, and I'm in San Diego. So I'm driving to Arizona. I just get into the Arizona border. I get a call, Kat Cannabis, right? So I thought, okay, well, I don't want to talk while I'm driving at 100 miles an hour, so let's get off. So I'm sitting at Dunkin' Donuts in Goodyear, Arizona, talking to Kat Cannabis, and she says, Frank, I've looked through some of your other books. I've seen you do interviews. You write really well. You speak really well. You need to write another book. And I said, Kat, I've written 5, and the experience was less than pleasurable. And she said, well, it's going to be different this time. So I said, okay, how's that? She goes, because I'm going to be your publisher. And so we said, okay, so Kat and Teresa are the publishers. They're called We Be Books. What a great name, right? We Be Books. So I put it down. The Business Secrets to Walking on Water is a 35 years journey of being a corporate executive and a business owner. And here's the things that you don't see coming. And that was the whole idea with the first book, is what takes out most businesses, particularly small businesses, is not what you know, it's what you don't know. And what you don't know, oftentimes you don't see coming. And so we said, well, here's a whole bunch of these things that I stepped on, and they're going to come up. So let's see if we can avoid these. And if you do see it coming, here's a way to get around it. And one of the funniest ones, not funny, haha, but funny, peculiar, was when COVID came, COVID started. I had so many people tell me, well, how do you prepare for that? Nobody could prepare for that. No one's ever seen this before. And I try to be nice. And I would say, no, look, since 2001, we've had 14 different crises, starting with 9/11 and meltdowns and all this. It said crisis management is now standard operating procedure. And what you have to do is be prepared for this. And you don't know what's going to happen, but you know something's going to happen. So constantly be reviewing, what are we doing? What can we do better? What do we not need to do anymore? And let's start to move in that direction. And then down, we would get people who said, well, I'm going to pivot. And I said, okay, tell me what pivoting is. And they said, well, I'm going to throw everything out and start all over. And I would say, that's called suicide. That's not pivoting. So let's talk about pivoting. What do you do well? Okay, you do this pretty well. Okay, what can we expand on what you do well to see if we can increase your revenue share, or your market share, or whatever the case might be. If you're going to throw it all out, you're starting all over again. So as difficult as it is to be a start-up, being a restart on a whole new area is even worse. It's more difficult to do because you got ingrained patterns in your mind and how you did the other thing. So it gets really interesting. So we got the book out, and it went on I think June 29th, and by 3 p.m, it hit Amazon #1 best-selling new release. And it was like, wow. I mean, I'm not like you. I hadn't had a book in that category before, and I went, oh my God, this actually does happen. So that was the first one. The second one, then we came up down because we got a lot of feedback that, okay, this is business secrets are good, and you showed us where the rocks are so we can walk on water. But my personal life is really not all that good. And so Kat and Teresa said, well, Frank, we've heard your personal life story, and it wasn't very good either. So why don't you about
that? Dang.
So I said, okay, well, we could do, and that one was called Business and Personal Secrets for Avoiding Relationship Landmines, long title. But, and that was the same type of thing. What is stuff that you don't see coming? What are stuff is going to happen? You know, it just is. That's just the way life is going to be. And so Kat says, well, tell me one. What's one landmine? And I said, well, one of the big landmines, one of the first landmines is, why do we keep making the same dumb mistakes over and over again? Why do we fall into this pattern? And it seems to be, this is what we do. And it has to do, and I told her, well, I don't know if this means that she's just a dumbass or if there's something else out there. And so I met with a gentleman, he's a business associate of mine who does brain entrainment. We put headphones on like you have, and then the sounds and the vibrations, and it helps change the neural pathways in your brain. Well, what I've learned is, because of your environment and your life and things that you've been through, you have all these unconscious biases or thoughts in your mind. So 90% of what we do is automatic, because your brain processes 11 million transactions a second, and only 50 require you to actually think. So a lot of it is just you're on autopilot. And so this counselor, after I had gotten divorced and was custodial parent of 2 little girls, this counselor said to me, Frank, you know what your problem is? And I said, which one? I got lots. But she said, you have the white knight syndrome. And I said, okay, what's that? And she said, you were the oldest of 5 children. In 8 years, I was the oldest of 5. And your job was to be the protector and the guardian and watch out for them. All right, now you've carried that over into your adult life, and you are looking for and you're attracted to people that you think are damaged, or people you think need help, or people you think you can save. And that seems to be the attraction that you have. And even in your business world, you're doing relaunching and turnarounds of failing companies. So you're doing the same thing. You're following the same pattern. Now in your personal life, your professional life is going well, but your personal life is going terrible, because eventually when you come, if that's the connection that you have, is I'm going to fix you because you're broken. Well, the other person may not think that they're broken, and the other person at some point is going to outgrow this. And it leads to a spiraling relationship that goes out of control. So that was the first big one. It was like, geez, okay. And then we talked about some other ones, and Kat had said to me, men and women talk different languages, as John Gray pointed out in his book. And she said, well, let's take a look at that, incorporating some of that stuff. So I was talking to a friend of mine who was in high school with, a woman in high school with, like 100 years ago. And I was telling her about this, the language thing. And so she said, I found this article, Frank, I'm going to send it to you. So she sends it to me, and it's a whole list, maybe 17, 18 things of what women say, what men hear, what it means. Okay. The very first one was the word fine.
Oh, yeah.
See, you've been there. Okay. It took me a while to figure out that fine doesn't mean anything close to fine. And fine is the end of the conversation. Fine is the end of the argument. Fine is, I'm done talking to you. If you're a guy, shut up. Go away. Nothing you say from this point forward is going to be of any value whatsoever.
Yeah.
So that was one of the big words. The other part of that is what you say, and then when you say it. That's a huge landmine in your personal life, because if you are talking to your cell phone carrier, customer service, of which there really isn't any customer service, and you call them and you're screaming at them for like an hour, and you come walking out of the room and your blood is boiling, and your spouse says, or your significant other says, look what I bought. They should show you this thing. And your response is, that's nice. Okay, nice is not a good answer. Again, you learn that the hard way. And what I've said, what we said in the book was, ladies and gentlemen, both, you can prep this conversation to get the response that you want with a little bit of preparation. Like, I've been looking for this for X number of for months, and I finally saw it on sale, and I bought it, and I'm so happy I saved all this money. That would have elicited a different response other than, oh, that's nice. It would have been, wow, that's great. It's going to look wonderful on you, because now you've teed up. If you're talking to a man and he's just come off a call where his blood is boiling, we don't pick up subtle hints very well. So tee it up, set it up, and then you say, oh, okay, that triggers, yes, that looks wonderful. And then you can start moving from there. So those were just a couple of the ones that were really, really interesting. The other one that was a big one, Dom, was make time. There's a big landmine, making time. And how many times do you say, or do you hear people say, gee, if there was only more time, or I'll do this when I have more time, right? And what I discovered is, there's never going to be any more time. There's 24 hours in a day. That's it. You don't get any, you don't get like soccer, you get extra playing time. That's it. There's 24 hours. You're not going to have time till you make time. And then what are you going to make time for? All right. My world, my case, making time was in the professional world, because the way I was brought up, and when I came up, it was, if your professional life is really good and you're successful, your personal life will just fall into place. Okay, well, that's not true. Your personal life does not fall into place. And so making time is, we're going to do something, set it aside, put it on the calendar, do something special, get it done. When I didn't do that, and for years, and then my wife left, and I had custody of the girls. So so I had to change careers, a high-tech executive, and I go and get another industry, which is falling off a cliff financially. But I'm talking to Sarah Westbrook, who we both know. And Sarah said to me, you know what you did, Frank? He said, you traded money and title for time. All right. And she said there was a survey, and I believe she said it was in Psychology Today, and they asked people, what would they like to have more of? You know, money, freedom, time, whatever the other one was. And she said it was overwhelmingly people wanted more time. Okay. As we said, there is no more time. You have to make time. And then she said to me, Frank, what you did is you traded money for time. And that time gave you the opportunity to create memories, right? So my daughters are grown up now, and they're in Phoenix. And when I go to Phoenix and see them with my grandchildren, they're there also. And when we talk, what they talk about is, Dad, remember the time we went to Rome for a week, or the trips to the ocean, or the Disneyland, or the concerts and shows we went to, and everything that they're talking to and they found as joyful was things that we did together. Okay. What they never say, Dom, is, Dad, that time you were in Brazil for a month and you put that big deal together, that was one of the highlights of our life. Okay. That never comes up. So it's making time to create memories. And then I realized, the time is going to pass. It is. It's just going to pass. But memories stay forever. And that's a big one if we can get people to, particularly in business people who are driven and striving, you have to make time.
That's what I'm talking about, indeed. Solid points you brought up there. Solid points right there. And this book is really amazing. In some parts, it actually hits a lot quicker than actually the business secrets for walking on water. Because I actually highlighted one of my favorite highlights of the book. I think it was in the tips, where like when you're coming home for the day, or if you're done with your work day and you're talking to your significant other, and one of the questions you list is, tell me what made you happy today. Like that sets the tone for like, hey, let's focus on what made you happy today, as opposed to, hey, how was your day, which is so cliche.
Exactly. Sometimes it's a matter of showing interest, right? It's one of the landmines is not listening, right?
Oh yeah.
And listening to connect. And that's the magic there. And when you come in and you say something, first off, it's unexpected because most people say, how you doing? But okay, well, they don't care when they say how are you. But when you come in and say, what made you happy today? What's the best thing that occurred in your life today? What happened if your children? What was the best thing that happened in school? Okay. That's like, wow, he wants to listen, or he wants to hear. Maybe you're going to listen, but he at least wants to hear. And then you have to engage and be involved in the conversation, because when you're listening like that and you're listening to connect, the message you're sending to the other party is, I see you, I hear you, and you matter. That's how you strengthen a relationship. And there's going to be good days and bad days, but when you come in with that general sense of attitude that I want to know what's going on, and I'm going to take the time to hear, and I'm going to listen. And I did a talk to a veterans group. I was a keynote speaker in November. And one of the things when you talk to veterans and people in the military, it was always the mission. The mission is what matters. Okay. And as I thought back on that later in life, we said, that's not true. It's not the mission that's the most important thing. It's the relationship that you have with the people that are involved in the mission. That's what's important. That's what makes it a success. And in order to get that, you're going to have to listen deeply. You're going to have to build trust and respect with these individuals. And then that's where the success comes from. One of the things we talk about a lot in the two books is you cannot separate your business from your personal life. It just cannot be done. And I tried to do it for years and I failed miserably. So when one side is not going well, it is going to bleed over into the other side. It's just a matter of time. That was one that was very much like a 2x4 between the eyes.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's true. It is true. It is true. I probably talk about that a lot of times when thinking back in the whole chasing success thing, because and I'm glad I actually picked this up young, the fact that, hey, your personal professional life, they're all going to meld together. They can't really be separated.
Mm-hmm. No, they can't. And The other thing we've learned over time, and this is a big landmine that business people step on, is emotions versus intelligence, right? So we go back and forth on this all the time. But how many times have you said or you heard say, hey, this is not personal, it's business.
Mm.
And as I went through this, my life, I went, well, that's nonsense, because everything is personal to somebody. It impacted somebody in some way, right? A friend of mine sent me this quote from Dale Carnegie, and they said, when you deal Dale Carnegie, when you're dealing with people, remember you're not dealing with creatures of logic. You're dealing with creatures of emotion, and you cannot keep your emotions at the door. You used to hear this all the time coming up. Keep your emotions outside the room. Okay, well, you can't do that. Your emotions come with you, and they're good, as I've learned. Emotions are a good thing because it's your body telling you something's wrong here, and we need to address this. Now, the way most men my age were brought up, your knee-jerk reaction is usually not the right one, and it's usually anger or sarcasm or snapping back at somebody. That seems to be the first reaction. We can't do that. Okay, what we have to learn after a lot of pain and suffering is when you're triggered, take a deep breath. Sometimes you have to take 2 or 3 deep breaths. Lean into the emotion. I'm feeling anger, I'm feeling frustrated, or whatever it happens to be. Lean into that and recognize it. Okay, I'm angry. Now, why? Why am I angry about this? Is it what's causing the delay, or is it the individual, or is it's just repeated going over and over again? But lean into why this is happening. Then you got yourself back under control. You might even have to leave the room. Let's take a break for a couple of minutes. Walk away, come back, and then address what the issue is in an acceptable manner. And I said that at one talk down, and they said, yeah, but you're going to walk out in the middle of it. And I said, look, I've been in high-level negotiations, multi-million dollars, and that's a standard practice. When the things are starting to get a little testy and unwinding, okay, let's take 5, let's take 10. And you walk out and walk away, collect your thoughts, because reacting usually is the wrong thing, and that just causes the thing to escalate further and further out. And when you're trying to create a relationship, to me, it's you have to have respect for the individual, and there has to be trust has to get built. And respect, in a book I read, I'm going to forget the author, but respect is like air, and as long as it's there, nobody thinks about it. But you take it away, and that's all anybody can think about. And as soon as an interaction goes and someone perceives that they're being disrespected, the interaction goes away from the original intent, and now it becomes about preserving your dignity or your pride or whatever it is that you are offended by. And then things start to spiral out of control, because now the one individual stopped listening. The other one is just talking. And it's like Charlie Brown's teacher, wow, but you're not listening. And then the other person is trying to push their point across. And one of the things that we pointed out is, look, the way you get trust and respect then trust, is stop trying to prove you're right all the time. You're not going to win. You're not going to change that individual's mind by continuing to badger them to show them that I'm right. Okay, show them that you care. I care about what you're saying. Let's talk about it. I may not implement what you want, but on the professional side, but let's at least listen to it. Let's hear what it is, and let's discuss it. Okay, and then we can make a rational, calm decision. And I work with I do a workshop at Arizona State with undergrads. It's once a quarter, and they're amazing because they are so smart. And they're way smarter than I was at that age, because I didn't even know what a PC was. They live on their phones, and I'm up there talking about business secrets, and I'm watching them, and there's 70, 80 kids, and they're on their phone. Right? They're doing whatever. And after a few minutes, most of them put the phone down. And the instructor, the person who works at ASU who had me come in for the workshop said, Frank, I'm really sorry because, that was rude of them being on their phones. And I said, well, I didn't see it that way. What I saw was they're fact checking me. I'm saying these things and they're saying, okay, is this person even worth listening to? Is this person bringing me any value? And I can check right this second. And if it is, you are giving them facts and it is the truth, they put it down and they start listening. And then they start asking questions. And these questions are like, wow. Because I recall when I was coming up, that wasn't the case. You just sat there and you were quiet and you listened and you didn't take notes or you tuned it out or whatever you did. But you weren't engaged. You really weren't engaged. I don't think of all the mandatory training we had to go through with all the changes in the law. And you sit in the mandatory training and you weren't engaged. You were thinking about whatever you're going to do next or why am I here and what do I got to put up with this stuff. And that's what the young people put together. And then someone said to me, well, Frank, we hear this all the time. Oh, they're entitled. Well, guess what? You're going to have to learn how to have a relationship with them because they're going to be the workforce. So you better learn how to do this. And one of the things I said was, okay, let's play a little word association here. And you're my age, and you say, well, you're not my age, but people my age say, NASA. What's NASA mean to you? Okay, well, NASA means good things, man on the moon, space exploration, etc. What it means to the young people is they saw a teacher get blown up. NASA is not a positive thing for them. You talk about loyalty, and this young group coming up, they saw their grandparents and their parents lose their home, and they did nothing wrong. You saw them losing their jobs and being sent overseas, and they didn't do nothing wrong. So what message are you sending to young people that says that you should be loyal when what we've shown them their entire life is we're not loyal back? Loyalty goes both ways. And that's part of the relationship that's going to become more and more critical if you're going to have something. Dr. Howard Hess, who's a futurist at University of Virginia at the Darden School, and I interviewed him, and he was amazing because he said the technology has altered everything. It says how we're going to work and who's going to work and what's going to be done. And the young people, they know what technology is. They're not afraid of it. And they know what it can potentially do. Okay, people my age, we're still trying to figure it out, right? But one of the things he was saying is if leaders are the ones who have to change, leaders are the ones that have to build a relationship and put that thing in place and have that trust, because the leader is the one that has to make the necessary adjustments. You better become more human-centered. You better you better learn emotional intelligence. And I say that sometimes, Dom, and people go, oh my God, I'm so sick of hearing that term, for God's sake, right? And I said, well, get used to it because you're going to keep hearing it more and more. Because one of the things that we, in the workshop that I was doing at Arizona State, one of the students said, we don't put up with a lot of nonsense anymore. If we don't like the way things are going, we'll leave in the middle of the day. Wait, give you a 2-week notice. We're going to give you about a 25-second notice. We're out of here. And well, that's not a good way to do it. But the fact is, you, the leader, have to adjust. Now, one of the things we talk about a great deal is how are you selecting these leaders for these relationships? Okay, it's well, you're a great salesman, so you're going to be the sales manager. Okay, well, 80% of first-time managers fail because they're unable to build a relationship. It's not that they don't know the job. It's not that they're smart. They are, but they don't know how to build a relationship. And so those are the kinds of things we have to look at is who are we going to put in these positions of authority on the business side, and then take that into your personal life and say, if I'm in a family dynamic, then I have to have that same kind of a mindset. What is it that they think? What is it that they're concerned about? What keeps them awake at night? Okay. what am I saying that could be a trigger that's disregarding or disrespecting someone? Like in a child, when they come in and say, this happened and I'm really upset. And you say, oh, don't be silly. That's nothing. Okay, well, it's something to them. And that's a big deal. And you've just discounted them. And now they go off and, well, it doesn't matter. Why should I bring it up to my mom or my dad or whatever? Because to them, it's nonsense. And to them, it's not important. Okay. Those are the things that we really have to look inwardly. And those are the landmines that are going to show up. Okay. The whole hope with this thing is that you can at least identify the landmine before it explodes and hopefully avoid a few of them. And if we can do that, then we've been successful.
Yeah, definitely can say that again because, yeah, relationships can be like landmines, especially nowadays where you're so right, even though I guess some folks in the corporate world are like, oh, EQ, emotional intelligence, like, okay, we get it, but sometimes it's like, no, don't think you really do, because sometimes you have to be reminded of certain things because we're all human, and as what you so eloquently said earlier in the beginning of the conversation, the fact that crisis management is basically part of our lives now. It's a requirement. And the thing is, like, it being able to have basically a map and say, hey, okay, so the landmines usually placed here, here, oh, there, and there. Okay, let's try to avoid these so I can keep my body here. You keep my whole life here.
Yeah, keeping it's a sense of awareness. Okay, because relationships, a big part of relationships is a sense of your own self. What am I aware? What are my limitations? What do I not do well? That goes on both sides of the fence, business and professional. If I don't do this well, then I at least need to be aware of it. And the professional side, then I need to surround myself with somebody who understands that a whole lot better than I do. On the personal side, hopefully you don't pull the white knight thing and you find a partner who can fill in, who can complement what it is you're doing. And as you look at the professional environment, if what I see all the time, Dom, is business owners surrounding themselves with little clones. Same school, we run the same fraternity, we go to the same parties, blah, 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 right? So if something's coming up, some landmine is showing up and you've never seen it before and you don't recognize it, they're certainly not going to recognize it because they had the same experiences you've had. So let's see if we can't maneuver and bring in people who have been where you want to get to. All right. They can see it on the horizon. So hey, be aware. We might need to maneuver around this thing, or we may have to make this adjustment here. And once you take ego out of the equation, which is ego kills everything. Ego kills innovation. Ego kills a lot of stuff. And Ira Moon, who's a friend of ours, she talks about this all the time. She says, once I remove ego, the I want, I need, I must, you take that out of the equation, and then you let the world come to you. Okay, well, let's deal with this situation as it arrives, as opposed to pounding your fist on the desk and screaming, because those are the kind of, that was the management style as I was coming up, and it didn't work well then. It's certainly not going to work well now. It just isn't. One of the things you see with a toxic environment at work and at home is when I talk to organizations, Dom, and you see the same thing, is you walk into a toxic environment, the minute you get off the elevator, you can sense it.
Yeah.
There's tension, and they're uptight, and there's no laughing, and there's no conversation. And you do the same thing in your personal life as you go home. And I saw this video yesterday, and it's this dad's coming home. He's got little kids, and they're jumping up and down, they're running and they're hugging them and all that. And that's a normal 2-3-year-old reaction. But when you get to be 13, 14, 15, they don't even acknowledge that you're even in the room and that you're there. Now, some of that is just being a teenager, but some of that is you've created that environment where, why bother? Why bother to bring things up? Why bother to talk about this? Because they don't really care anyway, and they're not listening, and they're going to be downgraded. And so I'll just move away. and you see families with, particularly like at dinner time, and everybody's on a phone, everybody's doing something, right? So there is no dialogue. And that's a relationship killer. That's a huge landmine, is when you stop communicating. And a friend of mine, Nicole Bendelay, talks about the difference. She says there's communication, there's discussion, and there's dialogue. She says communication is someone's talking. Okay. Doesn't mean anybody listening, but someone's talking. She said discussion is I'm trying to prove my point, and my point's better. And I said, okay. She says dialogue is listening to connect and understand. Dialogue is let's at least figure out, well, explain what's going on. Or in the case with I had 2 teenage daughters, and I never was a teenage girl, so this was really tough. So I'd have to say, well, tell me more about that. Tell me why that makes you feel like this, instead of the stupid thing most guys will say is, well, don't feel that way. It doesn't do well for the relationship, because now you're discounting them again, and they're just going to move away and walk away and shut down. But once you started to ask those kind of questions and listen, then the connection was forged, and it got even closer and tighter. So that now my daughters are adults, and now they'll call and just, hey, this thing happened and it upsets me and I just need to vent. Okay, fine. Let them vent and acknowledge it. And it's okay to feel that way. And don't try to fix it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, the fixing. As you were saying that reminded me of this commercials a few years ago. I think it was a couple, and I forgot what it was. I'm not sure if it was a fork or something. And or something about a nail or whatever. But it was hilarious. Where the wife's like, "You always do this. You're trying to take the nail out. We'll just sit and talk about it." It was so hilarious. But yeah, you're so right. Sometimes it's best to just let folks just vent, because they just want that listening ear to make them feel like, hey, I'm not crazy here. I'm not stupid. I'm not talking to myself here. There's an actual person here, and actually makes me feel that I'm actually doing something, as opposed to talking to a wall and making people think I'm crazy.
Right. It also shows that there's value. You're being valued. If one of the things when I was in high tech coming up, you'll see people will go to a point and then, oh, I can't do this, and they'll bring it over. I had a boss, his name was Rod Gray. He was like 6'8", big Texan, big voice, and people would come in, and he had in his desk one of those monkeys with the clapping thing. And so people would come in and, I can't do this, I can't do that. He would take that out and he'd throw it to them. Well, throw it to them and says, hey, don't put your monkey on my back. All right, now you can't do that more that way, but the message is work on it, figure it out. Let's talk about it. Sometimes when they come in, my daughters, and what I saw professionally is they just need some just to clear their head. Okay, let me at least throw this out, say it out loud, and okay, well, yeah, that makes sense. Did you consider this, or would this make sense? And then it's like, oh wow, light went up. So sometimes you're so close to the problem, you're so close, you're looking at this pen right here so closely that I can't see you standing behind it. And that's an enormous thing in creating a relationship and that connection in whatever part of your life you're in, is be engaged, be involved. Number one, be engaged, be present. And as you know, we were on a thing a couple of days ago on a panel, and being present is really critical. Being present doesn't mean you're physically in the room. Being present is you're fully engaged in what's going on. And when people see that you're there but you're not involved, then he doesn't care or she doesn't care, and those relationships normally don't end well.
Yeah, you're definitely right about that. So since you've been on this wonderful podcast tour promoting this wonderful book, is there a question that you wish you would receive about the book more often?
the question is, why did you write this? Okay. And the reason that we wrote this is I have not done well in personal relationships the vast majority of my life, going back to high school, for God's sake. And through many hours of counseling and introspective looking, it was, a lot of the things that occurred were avoidable. And a lot of the things and a lot of the landmines that I stepped on, I probably saw but didn't recognize, because you always hear, when a relationship fails, be it professional or personal, oh well, I guess I saw the signs, but I chose to ignore them, or I should have saw this coming, or thinking back, yeah, that action, that activity should have been a red flag. Okay, well, trying to get the point across is that pay attention to these things that you see as potential red flags. All right, and stop and think. All right, should I just plow forward? Okay, am I going to be the Titanic? Okay, the iceberg. Let's see if we can kind of not hit that.
Yeah.
So that's the reason we wrote this book. The second book, the third one, is going to be about getting unstuck. So you have the professional walking on water, you've got the personal relationships and landmines, and then even if you have a perfect life, you're going to get stuck at some point. Something is going to happen, and let's address some of those things that come up. What things can you get stuck with? Okay, you see the landmine, but now how do I get out of it? I avoided it, but now I'm stuck over here. How do I get around that?
That's what I'm talking about, dude. So this is going to be even better than the second book. And you got a big task ahead of you, because both of these books have been amazing, man. So I'm looking forward to the third one after this one. It's good.
It's exciting. It really is exciting. And the responses have been very positive. So thank you for helping me promote this, and for all the people who believed enough. The second book here, the landmine book, we did a pre-order, so the book wasn't even out, and people were buying it. And I can't thank them enough for having the faith that it was going to be worthwhile and have some value.
Oh, yeah. Definitely some value indeed. So this fun question I've been dropping on guests recently, just to help them promote the book in a different way than they never thought they promoted. So if this particular book, The Business Secrets for, Avoiding the Landmines, if it was a food item, what would it be and why?
Ooh, wow. If it was a food item, what would it be? I think it would be that Japanese fish that if it's not done right, you die. That's a pretty big landmine. Before you venture down and order that fish, make sure it's being done by somebody who knows what they're doing.
That is gold. I think it was some kind of pufferfish or something.
I don't remember the name. I was in Japan. I used to travel to Japan, and one of the hosts had talked about that. Oh, hey, you should try this. And I said, wait. I want to know what it is, the fish that can kill me if it's not done right, because I don't want that.
Yeah. And that's the perfect example, because it's true.
Yeah. Well, that was a great question.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been loving the response for this. That was definitely a keeper. That's definitely a keeper. More of a reason why folks listening should buy this book and gift it to somebody, no matter what time of year it is. Definitely. Man, oh man. So since this is a round 2, you get a special closing question. So you're called to give the final keynote message of your life for 90 minutes, and your audience is all 8 billion people on Earth.
Wow.
That's right. All 8 billion people. That's right. All at once. All of them looking at you for 90 minutes, man. What would the main message that you would deliver? What would the main points of that message entail?
The main point would be that everything's interconnected. And you cannot separate, as I said earlier, you cannot separate your personal and your professional life. It just simply cannot be done. We're going to have to find a way to create a balance. And then we can run through, as if I got 90 minutes, then I run through a number of the things in the chapters, all these different potential landmines and things to be watching for. And a lot of it is, it's an introspective look. It's a mindset. If I interviewed a gentleman named Brad Yates who does tapping, a lot of the tapping, EFT tapping. And he said to me, you know, Frank, if you only do what you've always done, you only get what you've always got. So the hope is that it helps alter your thinking. So think different, the old Steve Jobs comment. And let's value and we first off respect everyone that you're interacting with, because kindness doesn't cost you anything. Show respect, show trust, and show that you care.
Mic drop indeed. That's right indeed. That's right indeed. Powerful topic because it's so true. Everything truly is interconnected, especially when you do some introspection. It's like, oh wow, like all these past moments led up to where I currently am. It's like, oh wow, and some of these successes and these wins, oh wow, they actually are interconnected. And these setbacks, oh well, they hurt at the time, but hey, I wrote a book about landmines so they don't do the same mistakes I did in the past.
Yeah, it's when I was in the tech world, this very quickly because I know you're almost out of time. During one of the Iranian crisis, and the Iranians put mines in the Straits of Hormuz, right? And they were going to keep the Kuwaiti tankers from delivering oil. That was one of the threats. All right, so this is before we had real interactive stuff. So the Navy SEALs went down and put fiber optic underneath in the straits. Okay, so the project we had was we were back in Norfolk, Virginia, and that we swing the satellite around and shoot up, and then the Iranian tankers were going through with the oil, so we just marked their turn. This is where they're going. So obviously there's no landmines there, and then we'd send it back to the Kuwaiti, and they would follow the same thing. Okay, and then they say, oh, okay, well, we're going to move the landmines. And you think, okay, let's think about this, guys. Identify if people, the landmines are going to be there and they're going to move. And that was the important part, is that they're not always going to be stagnant. They're going to keep floating around. It's just be aware, be tuned in.
Amen to that. Amen to that. That's what I'm talking about indeed. So for those who want to keep in contact with you after purchasing tons and tons of copies of this marvelous book that'll help them avoid those landmines, especially, let's hope they don't run into any flying landmines. What's the best way for folks to keep in contact with you?
Well, you can go to the website, which is just frankzaccari.com. I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook. There's all kinds of ways to get us. Send me an email message. It's frankzaccari@gmail. Very simple. And when people respond on LinkedIn or Facebook, and we'll put a post up there, I will respond. I will respond back to you, even if you just put a like. I will thank you for your time and energy, because you took the time to read it and you took the time to at least click on something. And so I appreciate that. And I don't take anything for granted with all the people that have helped me, and I will be there to help them.
Woohoo! Well, there you have it, folks. And he's definitely right. It's like he's probably the only person to know that actually does that. It's like, hey, Dom, thanks for liking it. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Like, oh, that's above and beyond. It's going the extra mile. And I'm like, yeah, man. And he's so right, because some people, they just cyber stalk you the whole time and say nothing. And then if they get removed from your friends list, like, hey, why'd you remove me? I like your stuff. It's just like, oh, well, let me know at least.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
acknowledge.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So, any parting words before we close up shop?
Well, I appreciate the time. Thank you for the opportunity. And the the best thing is today would be listen deeply and listen to connect, because your success or failure, most of our success or failure, depends on the quality of our relationships.
Thanks a bunch for tuning in and setting aside some of your time to listen to this wonderful podcast, Going North. If you really enjoyed what you heard, do me a solid and share this with your network and someone that you care about that would get something out of it too. And be sure to subscribe to hear more, and heck, even check out the backlog if you would like, because there are hundreds of episodes to choose from, and they just keep getting better and not butter.